And it seemed to me, in talking with Jerry and just understanding something of his story, that this is actually an experience he had, and he was so catapulted and thrown into that moment by moment that he actually went through that incredible period of not worrying about where his next meal or his next penny would come from. An actual experience that most of us, would not be able to give ourselves over to, and unless we were actually within, a much larger monastic kind of vehicle. If we had some kind of inheritance which we were joining, we could probably do it. But there's a tremendous kind of courage that Jerry showed in the midst of the chaos of the postmodern world and the individual loneliness of this world that we've created for ourselves, to go his own way and in a way walk out into the desert and follow those minuscule seeds and minuscule images which were just beginning to come alive in his own heart, but which to begin with actually precluded him painting or sculpting or doing his art. In other words, you'd walk away through your integrity and your courage from the very thing which other people thought was most you. And you would walk towards something which even you yourself had not yet quite recognized. So the poem Faith that I was about to recite when I mentioned the Keats quote is really about that kind of faithfulness. I want to write about faith. I want to write about faith, about the way the moon rises over cold snow night after night. I want to write about faith, about the way the moon rises over cold snow night after night, faithful, faithful, even in its fading from fullness, slowly becoming that last curving and impossible sliver of light before the final darkness. But I have no faith myself. I do not give it the smallest entry. Let this then, my small poem, like a new moon, slender and barely open, be the first prayer that opens me to faith. Let this then, my small poem, like a new moon, slender and barely open, be the first prayer that opens me to faith. It's interesting, we have this reminder in our about the cyclical nature of existence, in our sky every night. We have the moon there going through all its different phases. And in a way it's even there when it disappears for those 3 nights of the month where there's no moon at all. And there's something quite incredible about that disappearance, I feel. Yet if you look at the way our society actually looks at existence, it's constantly trying to tell you and to tell our children that you should not acknowledge this disappearance at all, ever. You should always be waxing, you should always be growing, you should always be shining larger. And in actual fact, when you're going through the half of the month where you're beginning to disappear, you actually don't exist and there's something wrong with you. But if you look out of your window on any given day, you look out on a creation where there is nothing that doesn't go through the cycles of fluorescence and growth and decay and disappearance. But we look out and we want to be the one creature which is exempted from those cycles. Now, the artist's task is to remind us that we belong and that we're like everything else, but we're like everything else in our own particular way. We're part of the great family of being, and part of the great family of being is being a part of this whole cyclical entrance and companionship with disappearance and death and re-emergence. But again, I'd say, you can't go into the disappearing side of yourself, solely relying on the fact that you will reappear in a different kind of way, because you simply will not have the fortitude to go through the utter darkness you'll have to go through. You must, in a sense, make friends and companions with the disappearing, and form a kind of companionship with the disappearing light and with the disappearance of yourself. This is a piece that I wrote at a desk I have on a landing by a window that looks out onto the darkness at night. And I was sat there in the little pool of light from my reading lamp, and I was feeling the presence of this great shadow darkness that was spread out over half the earth and was around my house that night. And I suddenly felt a really strong comradeship with that darkness and that shadow. And I realized what a friend it had been to me all my life. So I wrote this poem as a kind of celebration of friendship with the night and with the darkness, so it's called Sweet Darkness. And perhaps it's also something of an indication of where Jerry went on his own artistic path. So the first line is, when your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. It's time to go into the dark where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn that anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn that anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. I suppose this piece is really a question of how much attention are you willing to give to the world, which I think is always the question the artist is asking of the rest of society. Will you look? Will you see? Will you hear?